Cowboys future in question. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn is out. Questions looming on whether Belichick might be a questionable replacement. I know Danny thinks there might be a chance. I think we're going to get some good talking today, and the Yankees their hopes just, I think, went down the toilet. We'll see what everybody thinks. Let's get into it. Daniel, let's talk about football first because you're totally unbiased. Cowboys losing Dan Quinn, do you think it's a big deal?
I think it is. Low-key. I don't think he's going to do well in Washington. He might, change my mind, see how he does, but I don't think
I kind of agree, though.
Going to be good in Washington. But I think losing him for Dallas was a big one because, they loved him as a defensive coordinator, and, for what he did for Dallas, who's going to replace that? I don't really know.
You can't replace
that. The only one that would come to mind is Belichick, but then again, don't know if Belichick will be okay with just that role.
Yeah, right. I know you were telling me you were thinking it's a possibility, but I think Belichick is wrong in the role, and I think that he just puts a huge cloud over McCarthy. You might as well just hire him as the head coach and figure out the rest later at that point. I do think it puts Cowboys in a tough spot. They're already dealing with a ton of issues, like we mentioned last week with the cap. So they're already dealing with cap issues. They're dealing with huge stars that are walking soon. And honestly, an aging roster at this point. It's sad to look at it, but it is an aging roster. And you need to be careful with who you're deciding to extend and who you're looking to branch out into new options with. It seems like they haven't thought about it. And now you add this on top of it. I can't imagine this is anything good. It's not like I'm sure Jerry knows he was expecting it, but doesn't mean it's less of a hit. You're always hoping that he would want to stay around and try to help out win a Super Bowl with the team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not looking. I don't know. I like some of the draft prospects. We'll put it that way. I do like the linebacker out of. There's a nice linebacker that came out of North Carolina. Is getting linked to us. It's possible. Let me go see his name real quick. He looked actually pretty solid. So Cedric Gray. There's a bunch of possible candidates over at the Senior Bowl too, which I'm excited about. So they did the first practice, I believe, or the last practice. One of the other issues, man. What do you think?
As I said, I think it's gonna be hard to replace Dan Quinn. I don't know. I can't even come up with a top name off the top of my head besides Belichick to
I think they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to pull a rabbit out of their hat because otherwise, the problem with Dan Quinn, as everybody who's a Cowboys fan knows, is that he gets so much out of his guys that anybody you put in those shoes is just gonna get less performance. It's just a reality. But honestly, I want to make the bigger talking point of the show, the baseball. I think we should get into it. The Yankees got put into a really tough situation over the past week. Basically, right after we got off the show, I want to say a day later, it turned out that there was some news coming out that the Orioles got bought. Okay, that was step one. The Orioles got bought, which was kind of frightening for Yankees fans because it's like, if the Orioles have an engaged owner with the just a massive amount of prospects that they have just still piling up through the system, that could be dangerous if someone's willing to spend some money on not only the prospects, but willing to dish out to get some already established players. And wouldn't you know it, within, 72 hours, they had Corbin Burns on the roster? I mean, when you look at what they had to shell out, I do want to go find this package. For the Yankees not to match what was given to the Brewers is just embarrassing. I don't know what you think about it.
It's depressing because they gave them nothing. Realistically, when I looked at the trade, I sent it to you first, right? Yeah, I sent it to you.
Yeah.
And I was reading, I didn't even look at the trade fully yet till I sent it to you, and I was like, they didn't give up nothing for him. They got him for a complete
Joey
steal.
Ortiz. So we got an infielder, Joey Ortiz, and DL Hall, who's a lefty pitcher.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
No offense, I haven't really heard those names. Well, I mean, they obviously I heard them on the roster, but other than that, I never really heard of them.
DL Hall has been around for a while, but Ortiz is not a very well-known prospect. He's very middle of the road.
Exactly, but still, like, for that to give up Corbin Burns.
Well, you understand the Brewers' position. Brewers are going into total tank mode, so why would they even bother going through an arbitration process or any sort of contract negotiation with somebody that they absolutely have no business signing? He's not going to help the team, and if anything, he's going to underperform this year on a team that's poor performing like the Brewers are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, shout out to Christian Yelich. He's going to have to sit through another rebuild. Sucks for you. I think it makes total sense for the Brewers. I mean, you get what you can, and if the Yankees were unwilling to do, like, think about the Brewers situation and imagine that the Yankees were like, yeah, you can't have Oswaldo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't have Peraza either. No, you can't even think about Nestor. Like, imagine that. More than likely, this is what the Yankees are saying. Like, yeah, you can go down into like our AA and you could pick a guy or two, and they're like, give me someone who might be average, and the Yankees are like, nah. Like, I can't follow the logic here to not want to compete. And for the Yankees, the amount of times that we've seen trade packages get put together that the Yankees have depth that they could grab into and make a better package than that and get a great player on the squad tomorrow. Disappoints you, and it makes you wonder where their heads are at. And I know you're half a Yankee fan. I'm sure you're just scratching your head on it.
The way I see it is if we don't get Blake Snell now, I don't really know what we're gonna do.
You're one of those? You think that's necessary? See, I'm in the opposite.
Think it is.
I'm in the opposite boat.
To that.
I think I'm in the opposite boat. But the problem is the Yankees are not a team that's a rebuilding team, right?
No.
When you look at the 2016-2017 rebuild, even the year that they missed the postseason, they still had a positive record, right? So when you look back on what the Yankees do, they try to just keep that level of talent at least at a bare minimum slightly above average, and then you go from there. The problem with that nowadays is that these teams like Baltimore and like Toronto have been building young talent for so long that they still have depths to pull into, whereas our talent is 4A talent. It's stuff, guys who've been around the block for ages, and yeah, they could help you out in a pinch, but when you're talking about building a roster out of these guys, some of them being paid $15, $20, $30 million, I don't think a Blake Snell helps your additions there, right? Because you're one Rodon bad year away. You're one Giancarlo Stanton being exactly what he was last year or worse. You're that close. Either one of those guys being a poor performer from not having a good season, let alone, Judge getting injured, Garrett Cole having regression, which is more than likely going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you look at everything on a whole, I don't see much upside for the Yankees other than honestly Volpe and the addition of Juan Soto.
Do you think we're going to sign with Soto to an extension or not?
No.
No? Just one.
Well, he's correct me if I'm wrong, he's a Scott Boras client.
I believe so.
If that's the case, he doesn't sign extensions.
I thought he signed with Washington.
I'm not saying Juan Soto doesn't. I'm saying that Scott Boras doesn't.
Yeah. Well, was he with him when he was at Washington?
Essentially known. Scott Boras? I'm not sure. Not sure, honestly.
Because I know Soto did sign an extension with Washington, so I'm curious if he was with him when
he just signed him through arbitration, though. He didn't sign him anything past. Yeah, they didn't sign him anything past that. So.
Okay. Makes sense.
That's also why his arbitration number this year was so high, because they gave him a salary extension that was so much above what a normal kid his age should be making. Not should be making, but what they normally make. But yeah, I don't think they have a chance. I don't think it matters what they put in front of his face. Even if they put a Judge contract and extended a year on top, I think Scott Boras is going to try to take it to an open market.
I don't disagree. I think differently with the Yankees. I think the only way I see us not having a good year is if our pitching completely sucks like it did last year, somewhat. And
Yankees pitching was the bright spot last year, though. Last year the offense was
in the beginning of the season, beginning of the season
when they were doing good. When they were doing good,
when they were doing good, they were excellent. But when they were doing bad, laying up so many runs, it's just like that was like every other game.
Well, they couldn't score.
Mm-hmm. So
they couldn't score. That was a bigger problem. Their pitching. I'm not going to say it wasn't a problem. Their pitching last year was the bright spot, and highlighted by Cole.
Even the bullpen.
It was not as good as the year prior, for sure.
That's what. Yeah, and I also don't see us if like the only thing I feel like what kills us every single year is injuries, and it happens every single year.
That's a Yankees problem, and I think that stems back though too when you look at the Yankees' history. They have a history of signing guys later in their career instead of promoting from a young age. Now, Judge is an exception of that because he's been injury prone since the day he got on the roster. So it's not like you could do much about guys like that. But when you're in a position to make a signing on a guy like a Jacoby Ellsbury, for example, he's an outlier in the other direction, right? So yes, I understand he's an outlier, but you can make these signings that was, I believe, $150, $160 million signing. Gone. The money was gone. You pissed it away. There's no other way of describing it. The guy didn't spend. I don't think he spent a quarter of the time that he was paid for on the roster actually playing. Right, he might have been actually there, but he wasn't playing.
Injured half the time he was there. So
yeah. So you have those examples, and you can point to a lot of guys like that. Like Stanton's becoming one of those, and it's not like he didn't have production in the beginning of his contract. It's that the end is becoming so ugly, right? And that is very common for the Yankees. And when you mix that in, and you're constantly trying to, like I said, make your roster just a little bit above average, you're going to go sign guys that are on the fringe that other teams are going to pass on. More than likely, that's because they have a flaw, it might be a mechanical issue, and there's a very good chance that they're injury prone or already have an injury.
Yeah.
That's just the honest truth is the Yankees put themselves in that position a lot more than other teams, I think.
I don't know if this was true. I read this the other day. Bringing it back to Blake Snell, supposedly we're the only team who offered him a contract as of now.
Right. And do you hear his? I think we talked about it at some point. His alleged asking price was like $260 million over 9 years or something. $270 million over 9 years.
I think so. I think we offered him like 6 years, and like
we offered him just a little bit less than Rodon.
Yeah,
might have been 5 years, 150.
I think,
or
like
6 years, 150.
I know we touched it, but like he wanted like a 6-year contract, and he declined it. But our offer is still on the table because we're the only one who offered him a contract as of now.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't see it as a failure if they don't sign him, but I do think that they need to reprioritize. And like I said, you need to, if you're the Yankees, you need to think about it like this. We're going to keep on carrying on, which you're going up against now a Baltimore that's, I don't want to say star-studded, but you need to look at that roster and seriously think about, does my team compete even on paper, let alone in reality, let alone in the Bronx or whatever you want to bring up. You look at these teams on paper, I'll be honest, the Baltimore Orioles are just through and through a better baseball team than the Yankees are right now. That's just an honest truth. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, I would think as the Yankees management and GM ownership, I would think we would take a hard look in the mirror and say this would be a good time to try to get what we can out of the assets we have, lower our tax threshold so that we're not paying double every time we sign a new guy. All right, the same thing that the Dodgers just prepped themselves for, this giant expenditure. They just set themselves up to at least make the World Series 2 to 3 times. Maybe not win, but at least get there 2 to 3 times in the next decade. We need to set ourselves up for that, and that takes a couple years of not being the best.
It does, but we're the Yankees. We're not going to do that. It's never been our culture. It's never been there.
I guess so. I would be very, very pleased with the Yankees if they don't offer Snell a dime more. And if he just ends up signing on as, okay, you're my only offer, great.
I think Stroman was a steal for us.
I thought Stroman was a great signing.
Right? I think that's a great signing for us.
I think any more additions in the starting staff, like you need to look at this too. As a guy I'm a big prospect guy, and I'm a guy who follows the Yankees specifically when it comes to prospects a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We've had pitching, for example, Luis Gil has been held back for so long because of the arms that we have. The reason being is he's a borderline. Well, he's a borderline that throws 101. I don't know how many borderlines that throw 101 every other organization has, right? We have a mentality that you need to be an MLB proven pitcher in order to start a game for the Yankees, which I think is one of the biggest issues that the Yankees are dealing with, is if you are not the Aaron Judge type prospect, which I think they do consider Anthony Volpe, if you're not at that caliber, they will not give you that many opportunities. And that really hurts pitching because pitchers are such a catch-22. You could be absolutely god-awful in AA and AAA, and you come into the league and your stuff just works here. That's a thing, okay? Yeah. The Yankees don't give that a shot. And putting guys like Snell, who's another stopgap, because you got to think they're going to be re-signing Nestor, right? Even though I'm not a huge fan of the guy and I don't think his numbers are that repeatable. Pretty obviously, he was out pretty much all year last year. When you look at it that way, we need to give more opportunities to the guys who should be coming up because we also need to get rid of them eventually, right? If they're not good and we find that out, that's a good opportunity to trade them instead of holding them down in the minors and letting them die there. And I think that Blake Snell signing would make that just continue. Like you said, it's just the Yankee way. But I think we're about to watch the Yankees go into a declining phase until they're willing to chop a little bit of payroll and reset things.
I don't disagree with you there. I don't know. You want to talk about the Ferguson trade?
Yeah, I think we should. The Yankees' rebuttal to this massive trade made by the Baltimore Orioles was to go get Caleb Ferguson. If you don't know who Caleb Ferguson is, he's a lefty reliever from the Dodgers. Not a bad arm. I honestly like him, but in order to get back at the Orioles, kind of funny to me, honestly. Anyway, we sent over two, I don't want to say nothings, but really not much of prospects back, so it wasn't much of a loss. Good addition for the bullpen, and honestly, a good replacement for Wandy. I think that's not a bad move.
I think it was a great. I wouldn't say a great move. I think it was a good move because obviously Wandy went to the Padres, only a 4-year contract, I think.
Yeah, that was like 2 days ago, right?
Yeah, now we're replacing him with our lefty. So,
yep.
And in my opinion, from his numbers, I think he'll be a better pitcher than Wandy. Wandy's like on and
Wandy's
off.
a big game. He's a big game guy. So, yeah. Other than that, I like the idea of having Ferguson, and I would also like the idea. Do we have any other lefties in the bullpen at this point? I'm trying to think. Like the only one might be that kid who was coming up last year. I can't even think of his name. Yeah, I don't think we have too many lefties. If we get Snell, gotta think Nestor might get pushed to the bullpen a little bit.
We have Victor Gonzalez.
I think he just got traded though.
Oh, he might have. I don't think. Oh yeah, the new guy's not on here. Nick Ramirez.
I think we still have. Okay, and Matt Crook. That's who I was thinking. Matt Crook. Okay, so we still have Matt Crook.
Yeah,
Matt Crook is also totally unproven.
He was a lefty.
I mean, man, you can look at it the same way that I think mentioned it. First thing you said was that if the Yankees don't go get Snell, then they lost. And I guess I would agree. The way of looking at it, though, is you're looking at only 2024. Yeah. You're not looking ahead, and there's a very big possibility that you go out and make that move and you still don't win. Still don't win the division.
Well, the reason I agree, and the reason I say that is because obviously what Cashman comments were like, they're there to win and they're going all out.
I agree. He never should have said what he said I feel like we did discuss this at some point, but calling yourself the evil empire of baseball, you want to reconstruct. What did he call it? He wanted to call it the Mecca of baseball, reconstructing the Mecca of baseball. Mm-hmm. If you want to go out and say these things, you can't just say them. You have to do that. Like the Mecca of baseball became LA this offseason. Mm-hmm. That's you lost. 100%. You absolutely lost. I'm sorry. Time to reset. Like I said, you made a great trade for Juan Soto. I think I kind of applaud you on that. I think you made a great deal. You've yet to sign him to an extension, and he will not talk about it until the end of the season now. So you lost that battle. And on top of that, you haven't added on top. You have so many pieces that can be moved. And one of the biggest pieces I think we should talk about before we get out of here today. How do you feel about Gleyber Torres?
I like Gleyber.
Why is he still a Yankee?
Since that move from second baseman, shortstop, I think second baseman suits him a lot better.
Still the reason why
he's still a Yankee is because, in all honesty, I think he's the most consistent of being a bat.
He hits and he's consistent.
I mean,
and he's on the field,
but I'm
not asking if he's good. I'm saying he's so valuable, and the Yankees could easily. I think if you gave Peraza last year, the same way you gave Volpe last year, I think that Peraza would be outproducing Torres this year. You're never going to see that chance now.
I had to see more of him batting because last year we saw a glimpse of it, and
it wasn't good. And you you also only saw what 75 at bats, right? Like that's my point. Going back a little bit earlier, though, they just don't let these guys try out. It's tough.
I think. Do we have him? I mean, if they want to give him the chance to be backup to Gleyber when he wants his days off,
he's going to be the starting third baseman, I think, at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think they're still going to stick with fucking LeMahieu.
Yeah, they got 100. He batted 191 and 173 at bats last year. He really wasn't that good.
I thought they were going to stick with LeMahieu still at third.
We'll see. I don't think so. I don't think that LeMahieu
I just realized how many freaking people we have.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, why is Torres still on the team, though? Here's one of the biggest issues that I have with LeMahieu. He's not a natural third baseman. He shouldn't be playing first. He should be playing second base. And he should continue to play second base. Why do you have Anthony Rizzo if you're going to play DJ LeMahieu at first base? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Like, even now I'm thinking about we still have Verdugo, too.
Yeah, but that's outfield is actually probably where it should be. The outfield is not bad at all.
Like, the way he, talks, he's like, oh, Gleyber, LeMahieu, and Verdugo are going to be, the top candidates for leadoff. So, how are we doing this lineup?
Well, I guess you got to think this is how we're going to end our show here. We're going to try to make the lineup. So you got to think that Verdugo's in left and Judge is in center. Yeah. Judge is in center, Soto's in right. All right, so DHing is going to be Stanton.
Yeah.
Catching is going to be Trevino.
Put a fielder once in a while.
Catching is going to be Trevino and Wells.
You like Wells or Trevino better?
I don't like Wells at all. I don't think he's very talented. But I also don't like Trevino because he can't hit. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I don't know how I feel about catcher spot, but.
Catching's a tough spot, man. We never should have gotten rid of Higashioka if we were going to keep rolling with Trevino. That's the honest truth. But
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because before we continue, would you mind them signing back Gary?
Yeah, I think that's a terrible influence on the team. I would never sign back Gary Sanchez.
Just asking.
Not in a million years.
Just asking.
Would you?
The other day.
I've been seeing that forever.
I wouldn't personally, but then again, no offense, what other catcher out there right now?
He's a cancer, man. I just wouldn't. You have that's another position that we have a whole bunch of backups in AA and AAA that just don't get a chance because we've been keeping Higashioka and Trevino as the top for the last 3 years.
I like
but let's move on, though.
He was all right.
Yeah, I like them too. But that's what I'm saying. If you're going to keep Trevino as your number one, you need a number two who's at the same level, which is Higashioka. They paired well. The problem is I would like a catcher who's better. But like I said, let's move on, though, because first base, you're going to have a split between DJ and Rizzo. Not that I want it. You'll also have a little bit of Verdugo. I think they'll try to make him move to first a little bit. And on top of that, you'll have so second base, you'll have Torres, and I don't think you'll see much of Peraza. I think he'll play a lot of third this year. Only reason being is that he's probably got the strongest arm out of all of our infielders now, with Donaldson gone. And not that makes him the best candidate for third, but to be honest, when you look at the age of LeMahieu and his track record recently of health, why would you not put him at a position like second base to just give him a chance to have a healthy season? Plus, it's his natural position. Like, I just don't understand. Anyway, you're going to have Torres at second. That's going to be an issue with getting DJ time. And then you're going to have Volpe at short, no doubt. He's going to start 162 unless injury gets in the way. And I think that this is his prove me year, because if he doesn't have a good enough season, I think they're going to start feeling out for candidates via free agency. And then he'll be their long-term second base, possibly. They'll kick him over the same way they did with Torres. And if he doesn't work out there, you'll never see Volpe again. That's what's going to happen. I'm not wishing that on him. I'm just telling you that's the trajectory.
Yeah, I know.
If he doesn't have a good year this year.
I hope he does have a breakout year and he stays at our shortstop for a little bit. So
now, would you disagree with me? You think they're going to start DJ at third?
I would say so, just because of the plays he's made there, and like we don't know. I don't know if they know, but we don't know how Peraza is at third. We seen him glimpse of it last year.
They know.
I don't think it was like
they know.
So I mean, I wouldn't.
It's not his natural position. He needs a lot of time. He needs a full spring training there.
If he works at it and we see that he's good during spring training, I say give him a shot there. I think he's probably the best bet, better than LeMahieu.
Yeah.
But if you're not 100% sure, I say you got to stick with LeMahieu at third.
Sure. I want to round out the show, I think, with one question for you. On that note, we just went through basically the whole roster, hitting-wise. I already asked you why we still have Torres. Why do we still have Oswaldo Cabrera?
Because he's a utility.
I understand, but the value, man. That's two guys on our roster. Oh, value. Three. If you want to talk about Peraza, three guys on our roster that we're just holding on to that have so much value, and we have a replacement on the bench right next to it.
I think
it doesn't make too much sense to me.
Cabrera is because I feel like they know either Judge or Giancarlo is going to get hurt.
Or Stanton's going to be hurt. I couldn't agree more. But that doesn't excuse having, 6 infielders on the roster at this point?
I think.
Yeah, it really doesn't excuse that, to be honest. Yeah, I think the Yankees got a lot of work to do. I think the Yankees have decision time coming up. I think they already made their decision, honestly. I think I'm happy with the way that they're moving. I would like them to continue this. I would like them to continue putting on a front like, we said what we said. We're not going to come out and say anything more offensive, because they haven't. Ever since those comments, there's been nothing more offensive. They've just kind of been silent, and I'm good with that. You lost the battle to LA. I think it's pretty clear. Just shut up, sit in your corner, and rethink things. I think come at things with a different angle. And honestly, think about what we want to do with the future of such valuable talent on this roster and how much of it could be turned into, maybe prospects, maybe other talent that helps us out in future years. I think it's a pretty big decision moment for New York.
I agree 100%.
All right, man. Couldn't thank you enough, Danny. Thanks for hopping on.
No problem. Anytime.
Everybody else, adios.